Welcome back to the Illiterate Greek. I just wanted to give a little shout out here. Our pastor at our church, Apostle Jennifer Cannon, does a weekly Bible study where she goes to different books of the Bible, word by word, verse by verse. And currently she's in 1 Samuel. And I just wanted to bring that out because a lot of what I'm talking about today comes from 1 Samuel. And then what I want to talk about is anointing. So there are two specific anointings in the Old Testament that we talk about: the anointing of Saul and the anointing of David. So in 1 Samuel 10, the prophet Samuel took a vial of oil and poured it over Saul's head, anointing him. And then further on in 1 Samuel 16, Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed David king. So we have a vial of oil and a horn of oil. So the vial is the Hebrew word pak, H6378, and it simply is a flask that contains liquid that can flow from. Now the horn of oil is the Hebrew word karen, H7161, and it also means a container for oil. But the difference, the other specific difference between these two is that the vial was associated with God's wrath and God's judgment. Saul was the choice of the people, not the choice of God. The horn of oil that Saul used to anoint David spoke of God's empowerment and guidance. David was God's choice. And, our God is so intricately a God of patterns and different meanings. So it's rather significant that in the Old Testament, there were 12 recorded anointings, 12 being the number of government. So Saul was the number 6 anointed. Number 6 is the number of man. Saul was the choice of men. Back in 1 Samuel 8, the people, they were talking about choosing a king, and the people told Saul, "No, we want to have a king over us. We want to have a king over us." And you can read how poorly that ended up going for Israel. And then we go on. When David was anointed, he was the 7th anointed person, 7 being the number of perfection, or God's choice. So when we look back in 1 Samuel 16, the Lord said to Samuel that Samuel had gone to the house of Benjamin to find the king, and he looked at all his sons, and he said, "Oh, he looks good." And God said, "Oh, no, not for this, not for that reason." And finally, when David was brought before him, the Lord said to Samuel, "The Lord does not look on things the way people do. People look at the outward appearance." Saul was a very tall, important looking person, but the Lord looks at the heart. David had a heart that was very tender towards God. I mean, he wrote many of the Psalms, but a couple of the more notable ones, to me anyway, in Psalm 73 and Psalm 23. And in Psalm 23 especially, "The Lord is my shepherd." In Psalm 51, he cries out, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." And God's response to David was, again back in 1 Samuel, "Does not the Lord take as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as he does in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than to sacrifice than anything else." Saul heard David, and he heard the anointing of Samuel. But David obeyed God.